Good evening, everyone. We are holding in the middle of chapter 38. I just want to show about this outset that next week we're not going to have a class. It's the holiday of Rosh Hashanah. The following week is just for Yom Kippur. The following week is Sukkot. The following week is Simchat Torah. And the following week I'll be in Israel. So we have about 5 weeks hiatus. Just bear in mind. I will send a reminder. You can study previous lessons. Refresh. YouTube. Just a introduction to what we are going to be covering. And actually, I'll share with you a synopsis of what we're going to be studying. Chapter 35, 6, and 7, the rabbi spoke about the power of action, how action supersedes all. When, as we all say, talk is cheap. As we all say in relationship, if you love me, you have to show it in action, not in words. Many a times, a person would say, I don't know what she wants. I love her, and I tell her all the time how much I love her. However, when she's asking you to be on time for an appointment or for dinner, there is no action. That tells you more than anything else. The words are external. Action represents the neshama. These are the last 3 chapters. So when God says, Ki karov elecha, it is near to you, adavar, the thing, the observance of mitzvot, la'asoto, beficha ubilvavcha, la'asoto, in your mouth, in your heart to do. The rabbi start the last 3, in your mouth, in your heart, and to do. The first 3 chapters, last 3 chapters, 35, 6, 7, the rabbi is talking about the aspect of action. And even if I don't understand how it works, it is the way God wants. And the simple way to explain, like if a doctor orders you to follow a certain diet and it doesn't make sense to you, you know a better way to lose weight or to be healthy. You know a better way than taking medication, the pills. But if doctor's orders and you took it, it will have an effect. The way things affect in our physical universe do not require intention. They require action. So when God says build a sukkah, when God says keep kosher, when God says speak in honesty, when God says go to work and don't waste your life, and I do it, I'm serving God. This was until now. Chapter 38, the rabbi speaks about the power of kavana. Kavana, Kavana, almost like kavana. Kavana is intention. When I do something and it comes with the right intention, I am elevating that act to a much higher level in which there was no better way to reach that level. The rabbi is going to explain that acting on a mitzvah without kavanah, without the intention, the proper intention, do fulfill the mitzvah. However, it's like guf belo neshama, a body without a soul. Dead body, no life. What gives life to the mitzvah? The intention. So what does make a chassid more different than a misnaged, than a non-chassid? The chassidim try to have fervor in all that they do. They will dance, they will clap, they will bring energy. And one can ask, why are you doing that? You're standing before the king. And the answer is because I want to make it the best way possible. So I might do less, but I will have the kavana. I will have the energy involved. I'll have my joy as part of the mitzvah. And it will, then there is another aspect that later the rabbi is going to talk about. It will guarantee continuation. If I do something without kavanah, a human body can reproduce itself. A human body can give birth or has the power to reproduce, not a dead body. You have a person who is alive, you have a person who is dead. They are both the same age, same body, same health condition. The dead person will never be able to reproduce. A human being that's alive has the potential to have children. Why? energy in the body makes it alive. Making it alive, meaning it will continue. And that's why if a chassid will do it with great joy, it will make sure that the children or the next generation continues on with the same relationship with God. The rabbi, therefore, will concentrate on kavanah. Before the rabbi will concentrate on kavanah, there were other concepts the rabbi is going to teach. And there were many, but they will help us understand the relationship of kavanah, intention, and action, the body of the mitzvah. The rabbi is going to share with us that when God gave life, any life, it all stems from the same source and it goes through the same descent, contraction and descent. And the rabbi has shared, and we will read it again, there are 4 types of restraining or constraining that takes place before energy comes to this universe to recreate, to create something. So my body, my soul goes through all 4. The soul and the body of an animal, of a mountain, of a plant, they all get from the same source. An object that is forbidden to us, non-kosher animal, idol, they go even one step farther, number 5, as Rabbi soon will see. But just we go back to allowed activities and objects, there will be 4 levels. So is there a difference between my soul and my body in the relationship to God? The answer is absolutely not. Both were created through the descent of 4 different types of descent and constraining before it can create either a soul or a body. However, for the recipient, for the created being, there is a difference between soul and body. There is a difference between a plant and a rock. There's a difference between an animal and a human. And the rabbi is going to say that that all is from the recipient point of view, but there's nothing to do with the creator. For the creator, it's all the same. Therefore, when I serve God with my body, meaning only mitzvah, I do because I have no idea what I'm doing, or by chance I did it because I like matzah. I happen to eat matzah on the Passover night. I didn't know it's Passover. I am serving God in the same way. What if I did the same mitzvah with great intention? Says the rabbi, you are serving God in the same way. There is no difference between God, the same God, constrained himself to create the soul, he's created the body. It's all the same. However, for the recipient, for me, when I do a mitzvah with only action, the relationship, my bonding with God is different than if I did it with kavanah. When I do it with kavanah, there is a much different connection. And that's what the rabbi wants to get to. Any questions so far?
Yes.
Yes.
A question. I was under the impression almost that kavanah was meant deep meaning. If you say something with kavanah, it's because you mean it.
And what does it intention means? You know a little bit about misnagdim, right? Have you heard of the name Rabbi Chaim Brisker? What do you know about him? Yeah, only. I just read. I'm not sure if everybody will grasp the content. I just read the following story. A misnaged, a non-Hasidic, came into in contact with yeshiva boys from Chabad. And they asked him what he study, what does he study? He told them the Talmud he study, Gemara. So they started asking him questions and they were discussing. He answered, he questioned them. Then they turned to him and he says, but you know, you're missing studying in yeshiva of Chabad. Because aside from the Gemara, you need to learn Pnimiyut Torah. What is Pnimiyut? What is Pnimiyut? The Pnimi is inside, but Pnimiyut is a connotation for spirituality of the Torah. So that man turned to them and says, of course I study Pnimiyut Torah. I study Rabbi Chaim Brisker. He studied the teaching of Rabbi Chaim Brisker. He understood pnimiyut, the insight of the Torah, as someone who explained the Torah much deeper. And that's Reb Chaim Brisker. Reb Chaim of Brisk, he was not a Chassid. He lived in a town called Brisk, and his understanding and grasp of the Talmud was very, very deep. He was able to express teachings of the Torah in ways that nobody before did. It was in a great way, deeper way. But that's not what Pnimiyut Torah means. Pnimiyut Torah means Hasidic teaching that explain how the story of the Torah or the law of the Torah is very relevant to me and you today. I just returned from Israel, and not this Shabbat, past Shabbat was Sheva Brachot. Those who've been here Friday night, I explained the families of the groom and bride came together and had a Shabbat celebration. Among them, there was a rabbi who spoke. 2 weeks ago, the Torah portion was Amalekite. I'm sure anyone who's been to synagogue, the portion of Teitzeh, ki Teitzeh, the last portion is Zachor et asher asa lecha Amalek. Remember what Amalekite had done to you. We have to wipe them out forever and never forget. In fact, one of the 6 memories that we have to remember every day is to wipe out the Amalekite. This rabbi said that he grew up and studied in a non-Hasidic yeshiva. One day he came for Shabbat to a Chabad yeshiva in Kfar Chabad, in a Chabad village, and it was that Shabbat, Ki Teitzeh. And the Mashpia, the spiritual teacher, spoke about Amalekite. That Amalekite is not something of the past, a nation that lived 3,500 years ago. Amalekite is a evil that exists within us. And that's why God is demanding we remember that, and that we wipe out Amalekite. It doesn't mean we take a gun and search for Jew haters. It doesn't mean we wipe out an entire nation. It means there is something within me, inborn with me, that desire to cool me down. Amalekite is the klipa, is the defilement of cooling down. Stay in bed a little longer, nobody will mind. You'll be able to catch up on YouTube the lessons. Why do you have to come to synagogue to study? There is many... casting doubts. Who said it's true? Who said it's great? That's what Amalekite, the name Amalekite and the number of doubt, the word safek, doubt in Hebrew, are the same number. I believe it's 270. Also the word dollar, US dollar is 270. It also cools down. Dollars cools down people. But back to Amalekite, he says that this is the first time he realized, because he went to yeshiva for all his life, he always read the story of Amalekite. It's a history of what they done to us, and that if we find them one day, he never thought about why do we have to do it, and every year there's a mitzvah to read it in the Torah. Before Purim, we read the extra Torah portion. Now, he says the rabbi, the mashpia, a whole Shabbos for hours was speaking about Amalekite that's inside of us. Then he understood what Hasidic teaching is all about, taking the Torah and making it relevant to us, explaining how it is affecting my day-to-day life. Back to our discussion. When we say, you asked me about kavana, right? What does kavana means, you said? Meaning that's the most external aspect of kavana. The true understanding of kavana is purpose. Why am I here praying? Why do I say those prayers? You take the time to think a little bit about the words. Why do the rabbis choose the choice of words they chose? Shema Israel, hear, O Israel. Why hear? Why hear? Why not see? Why not tell everyone? What is this about hearing? And why is the name Israel, not Bnei Israel, the children of Israel? Israel refers to one man, Jacob. It should be Bnei Israel, the sons of Israel, the children of Israel. God is our Lord, God is one. Also, you can say God is one. All those words you contemplate, and sometimes you take time. I just read that the Rebbetzin, the wife of the Rebbe Maharash, the fourth Chabad Rebbe, a Chassid once walked into the house of the Rebbe, and he heard her taking 20 minutes concentrating on the verse Shema Israel Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Now, she didn't read it for the first time. She didn't read it slow because she couldn't read. It's because she was contemplating every iota of the word, what it excludes and what's the intention, and how is it possible to affect in as many ways as possible. 20 minutes on one verse. How long does it take you and me? I don't know about you, me. 5 seconds? If we think about what we say, if we don't think, we don't even know how soon it is. The idea of kavana is not just to understand what I say, but to get into the soul of the words. That's in prayer. Let's talk about mitzvot. When I do a mitzvah, somebody asks me for a loan. I'm using an example. I can do it because I have no choice. I can't say no to him. So I have to do it. That's called guf belo neshama, body without a soul. I did it because I was, so to say, put into a corner. What if I say to myself, of course, and not only that, you always can count on me if I can do it, and I'm so happy to help you, and I don't think that you are inferior, but I just know that God created the universe where people can help each other. Now, it might be comfortable better to think that way, not share, because we don't want to make the recipient uncomfortable. But when you do that with intention, you are benefiting for connecting to God on a much greater level. Does it address your question, Harry?
Yes.
Okay. Any other question? So here is a story.
No snoring.
I read it from a rabbi who shared that he was in Crown Heights in 770 and he was praying. Next to him, there was another Chabad rabbi. And it looked like that Chabad rabbi wasn't born as Chabad rabbi. We call it a Baal Teshuvah. So he turned to that young man and he says, what's your story? Because everybody is curious. You want to hear people's stories. It's very inspirational. And the man said, the Rebbe saved my life. So I dedicated my entire life to the Rebbe. That's why I am a Chabad rabbi in Israel. I know his name, by the way. So the rabbi is intrigued. He says, tell me your story. So he said, I grew up in a very secular family in Israel. After the army, they do a trek. They travel to Kathmandu, to Nepal. They travel to the Far East and they do a trek. They climb mountains. They go for months, but sometimes they end up becoming monks, unfortunately, because they search spirituality. They never realize it's in their own backyard. He said that one day, while he was getting up to take a hike on a mountain, a birdie came to him and says, you're Jewish, you have to keep kosher. He says, I don't know why and what, but I felt it has to do with the Rebbe. He didn't see a picture, he didn't have a dream. He felt the Rebbe spoke to him and told him you have to keep kosher. But he never knew kosher. He wasn't raised in a kosher home. He knew one thing, that kosher is not allowed to mix milk and meat. That's all he knew. He didn't know that meat must be kosher, not all meat. Dairy must be kosher, not all dairy. He didn't know none of it. He just know. So he decided to, whenever he goes to eat breakfast, he's going to look for a restaurant where they don't mix milk and meat. Sure enough, in that entire town in India, in Nepal, he couldn't find. He says he walked from eatery to eatery for breakfast, and they all mix milk and meat, not a single one. And he was getting very hungry. So he decided he's going to let go of his pride and inquire and ask somebody. He saw an Israeli. He met an Israeli that went by the street and said to him, I want to keep kosher. Where do you think I can eat kosher? Because he didn't know nothing that it has to be kosher restaurant. So the stranger said to him, it's not just milk and meat. Meat has to be slaughtered, must remove the blood. It has to be cooked in kosher pots. If you cooked in it before non-kosher fish or milk and you cook meat, it's not kosher. You can't have. So he asked him, where can I find a kosher restaurant? I want to eat, but I want to eat kosher. He says, well, in this town, forget it. But there is a town, I think Kathmandu, it's like 2 hour ride, a train ride. In another town, there is a kosher restaurant in Chabad. Chabad has a restaurant in the part of the service to the tourists is a restaurant. So without questions, he said, I don't know why, but I felt there's such a strong push. I packed myself up, I left the hostel where I stayed, got on the train, and arrived around noon, a little after noon. He says, I cannot tell you how hungry I was. The hungry that I was, I've never had before in my life. And then I walked into a kosher restaurant, and he concluded, he says, the schnitzel I ate in that restaurant was the holiest schnitzel I ever had in my life. Did you ever eat a holy schnitzel? He asked the rabbi. And the rabbi says, for sure, never. Because when the intention, so two people walk into the restaurant, they both are consuming whatever is on the menu, schnitzel. But one had done such a sacrifice, and it's such a sudden change that it affected him for life. He returned back to Israel, he became observant, he traveled to the Rebbe to thank the Rebbe, and he cannot explain the relationship with the Rebbe, but he felt 100% it's the Rebbe, and he dedicated his life. Now he's a Chabad rabbi teaching Tanya and Torah to people who are looking to study Torah. It all starts when you have, I call it the intention, the kavana involving the action. When we do something, by the way, I do that, I feel the same way in relationship with my children. My children, many times, they need a favor. Can you take me? Can I borrow your car? Can I have some money? I want to buy shoes, but they're expensive. There is a way to be a good daddy and say yes. And I try to do that, at least in the last few years. And however, I've learned that if I put the intention, the kavana, I turn to them and says, of course, I love you so much. Did you ever doubt? Or I say to them, no doubt, even if I have an appointment, I'll find a way, you can have the car. In other words, the words, the kavana that comes with the action makes it so meaningful for both parties. It's not just the recipient, it's for me. I feel good about being a daddy. The same is about our relationship with God. I have an opportunity to shake the lulav. I have an opportunity to say the Shema. When I do it with kavana, it comes out totally different. It makes the relationship on a whole different level. So the rabbi is, as we're going to read soon, the rabbi is going to get back to the idea, does it matter to God and the relationship to God between doing it in action or doing it with kavana? No, because both stem from the same source. But for me, the person who performs the mitzvah, it's a world of a difference. This is a body that's alive, and that's a dead body. There is a much, much different. There was a Hasidic Farbrengen, here's another story, in which a man turned to his friend, a Hasid, says, what sin or what benefit is there to dead bodies, dead people over people who are alive? What benefit do dead people have over people who are still alive? We know the benefit of living is much greater. We can do more, we can create, but there should be a benefit to being dead. So the man said the benefit is they cannot lie. A dead person cannot lie. You're on this, we are on the same page. In a Hasidic Farbrengen, you don't use that language, so that's it. But that's what it means. So I use a refined language, but a dead person cannot lie. We have a choice. Unfortunately, we mess up all the time. There is another distinction between someone who is alive and someone who is dead. Dead people can be lying next to each other without ever noticing who is to my right and who is to my left. Living people, they need to know who is next to me. They get agitated or they're very happy. They come to an event, they want to make sure they sit in a comfortable place. What does it mean, comfortable place? Who is sitting next to me? I'm saving this seat for somebody. I just heard from somebody who says that his wife, she was at the challah here last week. She's the happiest. Why? Because she was told that the table that she was seated by is the macher's table. That's what he told me. She came home. She told her husband, I am so lucky because I sat at the macher's table. So I was inquiring who are the machers, so I can sit next to them too. So I heard the names, the machers. You want to be next to somebody and you also notice who is next to you. When people are dead, they can be lying next to each other. They have no clue about the pain and suffering of the person next to me. There is no relationship. That's what makes a person alive, that we have relationship. So I'm going to go and read a little bit from last lesson about the 4 levels. And even though I can summarize, but I think it's worth sharing.
What page?
We're going to go back to page 535. The Alter Rebbe here described the process whereby the divine life force descends from its lofty godly origin to the point where it creates and gives life to physical matter. That is, from the breath of God's mouth, a reference to Malchut of the world of Atzilut, to the world of material Asiya, from the highest world to the lowest world. Says Rabbi, he defines various steps in this process. Number 1, descent from level to level. Number 2, numerous tzimtzumim, contraction. Number 3, powerful tzimtzumim, powerful contraction. And number 4, clothing itself in Klipat Nogah. And here is the rabbi explained. Let us examine them individually. So number 1 is descent from level to level. Descent from level to level to reach down to the level of Asiya, of the lowest world. The life force must first descend from the world of Atzilut to Bria, thence to Yetzira, and finally to Asiya. Within each of these worlds, there are many levels, and the life force must descend through them all before reaching the next lowest world. So that's descent from world to world, 4 levels. They go down and get smaller and smaller and smaller. Number 2, numerous tzimtzumim. Each descent of the life force entails a contraction of the light and life force, lessening its intensity. But descent and tzimtzumim alone, no matter how numerous, will still not make possible the creation of the physical being. The divine life force will still be at a level where anything created by it would be a spiritual being. Albeit, if a law great of spirituality, the creation of physical matter presuppose another condition vis-a-vis powerful tzimtzumim. That is, tzimtzumim which entirely change the character and the life of the life force, and not only its intensity, to the point where it can create and give life to material beings. But even this type of tzimtzum cannot produce a world like ours, in which it is not apparent that God is the creator, and where, in fact, God's creation can be used in defiance of his will. This is achieved only when the fourth level. I hope you understand. If not, you can read it. It's simple. Number 4, the life force clothes itself in Klipat Nogah, and thereby also in the other Klipot, as will soon be explained. As defined in the first chapter of Tanya, Klipat Nogah is a mixture of good and evil. Therefore, whatever receives its godly life force through the evil of Klipat Nogah, in which the life force is clothed, can be utilized either for holy purpose, in serving God's will through performing a mitzvah, or for an unholy purpose, in violating his will through a sinful act. So in other words, the 4th one is going to Klipat Nogah, the shell of Nogah. Nogah is a mix and can be evil or can be good. It depends on our choice. So I can use my resources, money, talent, family, energy, health, for positive, or I can use it for negative. It's all equal, 2 sides to the coin. In summary, through many descents and powerful tzimtzumim, the godly life force clothes itself in Klipat Nogah and thereby gives life to all the creatures of this world. So the source of everything, neshama, body, the soul, the goof, the universe, the animals, the plants, the mountains, it's all from Klipat Nogah. It came from Klipat Nogah through another 3 steps of contraction. The Alter Rebbe now distinguishes between permitted and forbidden objects. The former receive the life force directly through Klipat Nogah. For the latter to receive the godly life force, clothed in Klipat Nogah, it must first descend still farther to be veiled in the 3 completely impure klipot. We study about the 3 impure klipot, so something that is sinful, cheating, lying, non-kosher animals, it goes to another level of constraint. This means, A, 1, all things of this world that are permitted and pure, which receive the vitality direct by Klipat Nogah, and from and through Klipat Nogah, evolve. Number 2, all impure, forbidden things, which derive the vitality from the 3 impure klipot, yet the vitality too stems from Nogah, since it is the intermediary level between holiness, where all life originates, and the 3 impure klipot, as mentioned above. So the Rabbi is just a side note of forbidden objects went through a 5th level of constraint, and that is the 3 unclean klipot, but it came from Nogah. Nogah is the source for everything. We can conclude from this that there is no difference between the life force of the soul and that of the body in terms of revelation or concealment, since both body and soul are of this world. The life force in them is equally concealed in the veil of Klipat Nogah. Says the Rabbi, soul is in this universe, body is in this universe, both come from Nogah, both come from the same source. In other words, the Rabbi is going to introduce the idea of soul and body, and then to compare kavana, intention, to the mitzvah and no intention. Nevertheless, says the Rabbi, the godly illumination, meaning the flow of vitality by which God illumines and gives life to all creatures of this world by way of this garment, that is Klipat Nogah, is not the same for them all. And the difference between the life force of the various creatures is in terms of contraction and expansion. In some creatures, the life force is constricted and limited, while in others it finds broader expression. And the rabbi is going to explain it in an example. And I think I showed you the example. In other words, Klipat Nogah is the source. The question is how much. So it's not a qualitative distinction, but a quantitative. The quantity. A animal will get more than plant. Plants will get more than mountains, minerals. Human will get more than all of them. But they all the same quality. The source comes from Nogah. Says the Rebbe, the difference between concealment, Hester, of the life force and its contraction, Tzimtzum, can be expressed as follows. Suppose one hangs a thick curtain on a window to screen out the sunlight. The light entering the room through the curtain will be of an entirely different quality. In fact, it might be described as a mere echo of the original light. This is concealment. So when we say concealment, imagine there is a burlap covering on the window. It's the only source of light, sunlight, and the burlap blocks the light. Whatever you get, there's no light in the room, but you see a little different color of that section. It's a whole different quality of light. However, if on the other hand, one boards up the window and leaves only a tiny hole by which the light may pass, the light shining through the hole, though greatly restricted, will be the same qualitatively as the original light. This is what is meant by contraction. So concealment changes the quality of life completely different. Contraction is, imagine you have a wall and there is no light, all 4 walls blocking the sun, but someone drilled a hole, a 1/4-inch hole, and now during the day you see light. The light, it will not be effective in the room. You cannot see anything in the room anyway. But when you look through that peephole, you look through that hole, you see the same light that's outside. The quality of the light is equally the same, except that it's much smaller and therefore it's not as effective. Says the Rebbe, I hope you understand what we're reading here. I'm going to continue reading because I explained that already. In the physical body of a living creature and in an absolutely inanimate being, such as stones or earth, in which no life or spirituality are apparent, since they lack even the power of growth, the ray of the divine creative power is in a state of unparalleled contraction. So minute is the life force within these inanimate beings that they lack even the power of growth. So you have different categories in the creation of the universe. Some of them will have no power to grow, like the stones and the earth. Some of them will have power to grow and to reproduce. In vegetation, the ray is not so greatly contracted. The phenomena of growth indicates the presence of something more than mere physical matter. Some degree of quality of spirituality is in evidence. So says the Rebbe, if something can grow and expand, must have much greater level of energy. And therefore, you have a difference between the categories of the creation. In general, says the Rebbe, all things in this world are divided into 4 categories: mineral, vegetables, animal, and man, literally the speaker, corresponding to the 4 letters of the divine name, the Tetragrammaton, from which they are derived. Each of these 4 categories received its vitality from one of the 4 letters. God's name, the name used most of the time to creation in the creation, is Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. The last letter Hey correspond to the mineral and earth. The Vav correspond to the plants and trees. The Hey, the first Hey, corresponds to animals, and the Yud, Chochma, corresponds to the human. In Kabbalah, it's dealt with in great length how the 4 letters correspond to the 10 attributes, each one to a section of the 10 attributes. First is the Yud, it's Chochma, it's the first. Vav, Yud, K is Bina. Animals have understanding and emotions. In that way, they're better than the other 2 categories below them. Then you have Vav, so you have 2. Then you have Vav representing the 6 attributes of Midot. And then you have finally the Hey, the last Hey, which is Malchut, representing the physical earth and minerals and stones. So all 4 categories, why are there 4 categories, not 5, not 7? And the answer is because God, when He created the universe, He expressed Himself with 4 letters. Each one of the letters of God's name correspond to one of those 4. Although, I just want to interject here one idea. The 4 categories can actually be subdivided into 2. The first 2, inanimate and vegetation, are more akin to a body. The human body is dead. Without the neshama, does not grow, does not express emotion, and no intelligence. So is the earth and plants. Plants will grow, but they don't express themselves. They don't yell, they don't scream, and that's why you're allowed to pull from the earth a radish or tomato, and there is no, because they lack the soul, the spirituality, which is intelligent and emotion. The other 2, animal kingdom and human kingdom, are representing the soul. The first 2 representing the body, the other 2 representing the soul. That's why animals were not allowed to rip apart a body part because it hurts the animal. It has to be slaughtered and killed, so there is no pain. That's why we have to be kind to animals, not allowed to hurt an animal. Tzar Balei Chaim is a mitzvah. It's debated if it's rabbinical Torah, but definitely we see in the Torah many sources. We see Bilam is screaming, the donkey is screaming at Bilam, why did you hit me? And the rabbi says she has a good demand, because you're not supposed to hurt someone for no reason. Even though he was riding the donkey, that's what the donkey was created for. Kicking the donkey is unacceptable. And that's why I said, why did you do it? And we see other times in the Torah, in the Shema, we say that Venatati Esav Besatcha Livemtecha, I will place weed, food, hay, in the field for your animal, ve'achalta ve'savata, and then you eat and satiate yourself. And the order is very important. You must feed your animals before you eat yourself. Why? Not to cause pain to the animals that they see you eat, the dog and the cat see you eat and they don't get. if you own a cat, if you're a cat lover, if you own a dog, if you have fish, if you have a parrot, you need to feed them before you eat yourself. It's a mitzvah. Why tzar baalei chaim? In other words, the animals have emotions and they have intelligence as well, and therefore they are more connected with soul. So if I to take the entire 4 categories and divide them into body and soul, the first 2 categories, the minerals, the plant and the plant universe, are part of the body. The animal and the human are part of the soul that makes the universe so beautiful. You are making yourself clear, Ali? Yes or no? What? Says the Rebbe. Now, just as the illumination and the flow of vitality found in the mineral and vegetables categories bear no comparison or likeness to the illumination and flow of vitality clothed in animals and men, since in the latter 2 categories it is clearly apparent that they are alive. You have animals who move around, they reproduce, they have taken care of their cubs, and they also are communicative. Plants don't do that, on the surface at least. Minerals don't do it. So there is a much greater distinction between them. Yet, although in all 4 categories the divine animating light is the same in terms of the concealment of continents, that is, in all 4 categories the inner aspect of the divine light is concealed equally, and in all 4 categories the light is clothed in the same garment, namely the garment that is veil of Nogah. Hence, in none of these categories is it apparent that the vitality is actually godliness, yet despite this equality, the vitality of the inanimate beings and the plants is incomparable to that of animal and man. Says Rabbi, they all get it from the same place, from Klipat Nogah, after 4 different levels of changes. Yet, there is much difference between the way the human is created, animal created, plants is created, and the minerals. Says Rabbi, similarly, there is no comparison or likeness between the illumination and flow of the blessed Ein Sof light, meaning the inner aspect of his will, without concealment of countenance and with no garment whatsoever, as it radiates in and is clothed within the mitzvot, consisting of action, whether actual action of mitzvot performed through speech and verbal articulation, which is regarded as actual action, as mentioned above, when performed without kavana. Says the Rebbe, there is no difference between doing the mitzvah if I have kavana, if I have the proper intention, or I have no intention. In both, I receive the vitality, or I connect with God through Nogah. The illumination of the Ein Sof found in these mitzvot bears no likeness or comparison with the superior illumination and flow of the blessed Ein Sof light radiating and clothed in the kavanah of the mitzvot of action. Meaning, man's intention to attach himself to God by fulfilling his will, as expressed in the mitzvot, since he and his will are one. Similarly, with regards to kavanah in prayer and recital of Shema and its blessings and in other blessings, where through one's kavanah in them, he attaches his thought and intellect to God, and it is not that attachment of man's thought and intellect to God is intrinsically superior to attachment through the actual practical fulfillment of the mitzvot, depending on action, as will be explained further on the unity with God. So what the Rabbi is saying is that when I do the mitzvah, God said pray, God said give tzedakah, God said keep Shabbat, keep kosher. I do that mitzvah, even if I had no idea that I did it. I fulfill God's will. I connected with godliness. If I did it with kavana, I fulfilled the mitzvah in the same way. I connected to God. However, for the recipient, and this is what the Rabbi is going to go, because God wants me to do it with kavana, therefore, when I do it with kavana, I am elevating myself to a greater level. From God's perspective, it's the same. From my perspective, however, it's totally different. It's like someone who is dead and someone who is alive. And that's where the rabbi is going to continue on next time, and we're going to stop right here. So I hope I made myself clear. All this is an introduction to the distinction between kavanah and no kavanah. So far, the rabbi explained is the way that light and energy from God came to create the universe, and all that is in it, and that includes body and soul. That includes action of mitzvot and with kavanah, without kavanah. However, now the rabbi is going to make a distinction from the recipient point of view. And with that, we will conclude, and I want to wish everyone K'tivah v'chatima tova, a concealed and inscription in the book of life for a good, happy year. Shana tova, everybody.
Thank you, brother.
Bye, guys.